So let's start bringing everything together now in a search of PsycINFO on our topic of the transition from primary to secondary school for learners with autism. Using the concepts and keywords discovered earlier, we can begin applying the principles of Boolean search and related search tools such as truncation and phrase searching to creating our search. It's at this point that we start making use of all the concepts and the alternative keywords that we discovered in part 3 of the search strategy tool. These will form the foundation or the main building blocks for our search strategy. Section 4 of the search strategy tool has been developed to replicate a database search interface. For each concept that we've discovered in our topic, we apply these to two boxes that have been set aside for them within the search strategy tool. For example, in section 1 we have two text boxes where we can include all of the keywords and concepts for changing or moving between schools. In the section 2 we have two text boxes where we can put all keywords and terms that relate to primary or secondary school. In the third section, we have again two search boxes which we can use for pupils, learners, or alternative keywords for students. And finally, in section 4, we again have two text boxes where we can look for alternative terms and acronyms for autism. You'll notice that in putting these together, we've introduced some Boolean search operators and also some truncation and some truncation and phrase searching tools. For example, we have an asterisk or a truncation symbol for transit, which will bring back transition, transitioning, or transitioned. We also have a phrase search for changing school. Additionally, in section 2, we have school and asterisk, which could mean school or schools. And with the Boolean AND, we've used parentheses here to include primary or secondary or infant schools. Each of these will be combined with school, so that should bring back either primary school or schools, or secondary school and schools, or infant schools and schools. And again, we've got a phrase here for any transatlantic terminology such as high school. And we've continued this with the last two text boxes. We've got learner or learners, or pupil or pupils, or student or students, or child or children. And again, we've got autist, which could be autism or autistic, ASD, and a phrase search to represent that for autism spectrum disorder. Going back to the PsycINFO database, what we need to do now is to get those lines from our planned search strategy into each of the representative boxes here. So if I copy the first line of the first part of the search strategy here and copy and bring this across into the first box of the PsycINFO search interface, and bringing the second part of that first bit. So if I just copy here, go back to PsycINFO, I'll just move across to move with the asterisks and drop these in. We can now see that everything to do with moving or transition is now in the first text box of the PsycINFO search interface. So again, if I grab everything for the schools or high school here, copy by right-clicking on my mouse, and bring this into the second search box. So we now have changing or progressing from infant, high school, or secondary school. Again, if I go back to my search strategy tool, and we can take everything to do with learners or pupils or students, copy, and put that into the third text box, search text box here. And if I go back to my search tool again and take the final section on autism or ASD or PDD, and copy, go back to PsycINFO, you can see now that all of the initial boxes are full with our search terms. So if I hit this plus symbol, it'll allow me to add an additional search text box. So here I can just paste in the autism terms and keywords. So within PsycINFO now, I have my first concept, which is transitioning, changing school or progressing. My second one for primary or secondary schools or high school. My third for learners or pupils or students. And my fourth for autism or ASD or autism spectrum disorder, each of which are joined together by an AND. So we're going to find this and that and that and that all together. So if I now hit search, we can now see that it's brought 895 results back, which include most of the alternate terms and keywords that we've put in. For example, in our very first result that's come back, we have transition, primary, secondary with autism spectrum disorder. However, we may want to filter these down a bit to get down to a more manageable number. So this is where we bring in our limits that we decided earlier on in section 5 of the search strategy tool. We can select an age range. So for example, it could be 2010 to 2015 or 2007 to 2017. We might want just peer-reviewed articles as opposed to standard journal articles that haven't been peer-reviewed. And we want to look at a specific age range. So there could be birth to 12 years or possibly around the 12-year-old mark. So if you go back to our search results from PsycINFO, we could begin by restricting the years to 2007 to 2017, which brings our results down to 694. We definitely want to look at academic journals, so we'll select that option, which brings it down to 526. And we might want to look at some of the subject headings that are available. So if we select under subject major headings, show more, we have a list of different subject major headings here that have been used within these records. So what we're interested in is obviously autism spectrum disorder. We'll select that. Maybe special education. Definitely school transition. As we move down slowly, we might want to use intellectual development disorder, possibly school-based intervention. If we keep and mainstreaming. If we keep moving down, secondary education, special education students, high school students, and we go through all of these other ones that we miss out. Is some of the rubbish that you might find that crops up within a search. This allows us to fine-tune and filter. So if we now update, we can see now that we're down to 336 results. Further still, we could look at the main subjects. So if I hit show more, again, we're not really interested in childhood development, so we can leave that. Let's have a slow look through. We maybe want secondary education, transition planning, high school students, intellectual development disorders, school transition, possibly special education and students. Again, we're not really interested in adolescent development or adaptive behaviour, so we can leave those. Anxiety might be an interesting one to use. Definitely autism. If we keep moving down, we might want to pick up elementary school students as an American approach. And moving still, we don't really need any of these because we're not interested in colleges or the brain or epidemiology. So we now hit update. And we can see now we've brought this down to 37 results. And we can see a lot of these are exactly what we're looking for. Further still, we can restrict by language. So we've got English. And if we go down further still, we might want to look at age. And again, we probably want to select show more. And if we select childhood, birth to 12, school age 6 to 12, and that should just about cover the age group that we're interested in. And if we just hit update, we can now see that we have a series of very, very useful resources that we can put to use within our work.